Welcome back to Card Talks, where I rant, ramble, rave, and word vomit my thoughts on training, life, and fitness. And I've talked a couple times about RPE, or rating of perceived exertion. You know, good things about it, bad things about it, and kind of why I don't think it's really a great tool for younger kids or new trainees. And there's a different way to do training for younger kids that is showing a lot of promise. Especially in certain populations, we'll get into in a second, but velocity-based training. And it was something that, you know, when I first heard of it, I tried to play it off like I had heard of it. And VBT, as a lot of people reference it as, is basically a way of tracking bar velocity or bar speed as it relates to certain physiological adaptations. So strength, speed, maximal strength, power, you name it. And it does this by basing off meters per second and how fast you move a bar, right? A lot of times it's tracked either as bar displacement and kind of using like a, I don't know how the, oh gosh, what's the name of it? Push bands, push training. That they attach to a bar. A lot of times you'll see Tendo units, which is a cord that's attached to the end of a barbell. That's the one that I'm most familiar with and use the most. And being able to understand that by tracking bar velocity, you can get a better kind of range or better knowledge of what somebody's actual capacity is. And through all the studies, and basically the way, I think it was the Russians that did a lot of it, but basically you can tell how much like a percentage of a 1 rep max it is, or like a weight is, based on how fast the bar moves. And this can be a great tool with younger kids because it helps you identify two things: what are they actually capable of, and then also being able to understand at what point do they technically break down. So it's a great, you know, tool, especially because if kids like, oh, like that's heavy enough, but really like, well, you're moving the bar fast enough, we can go heavier, or at least until the technique breaks down. One of the coaches that I really love that does some great work with it is a guy named Mark Hoover. And Mark is the York Comprehensive High School in South Carolina. He's a strength coach there. And he's actually talked about how he used it with kids, especially with females who are a little bit more gun shy on adding weight to the bar. And basically showing them, hey, like here's hard data. You're moving what you say is about 75%, well, you're moving it like it's 50%. And you can start to load the bar a little bit differently and add a little bit more weight to the bar based on how it's moving. So velocity-based training is definitely one of those things where if you've got access to it, being able to use that as a way of identifying, you know, percentage-wise what the intensity of a movement is. If not, you can always use the good old make the plates rattle kind of concept. And if it becomes too heavy to where you can't, you know, make the plates rattle, that's when we're starting to get into our max strength stuff. So we'll talk more about that in a different kind of talk. But until next time, use some, you know, look into the velocity-based training stuff, or just ask some questions and comments, and we'll have some fun with that. So, but until next time, we'll see you in the passenger seat.